The next project on my 1966 Lincoln Continental will be fully cleaning the rear undercarriage of the car. Previously, we had already pulled the fuel tank, we had pulled the resonators, mufflers, and tailpipes, we pulled the rear axle, we pulled the shocks, and the leaf springs. So everything is out of the car, and we can now clean it, and then we're going to prep it to re-undercoat the areas where there was undercoating before. And so let's go ahead and get started on that part of the project now.
I didn't do any before video footage of the undercarriage, but as you could see here from this picture, there is an original red sealer or primer that the whole undercarriage was dipped in, and the idea is to get the 60 years worth of dirt and grime removed from that undercarriage. And before getting started, it wasn't clear just how crisp or clean we would actually be able to get this red sealer and primer. And I thought that this picture would be a good representation of just how dirty the undercarriage of the car is. If you look at that circle right underneath the muffler, that is where the leaf spring shackle bolts in. And so the reason that there's that bright circle is because that's where there's no dirt or any, it's just the exposed metal. And so all of that black around there is not black paint. That is just the dirt and grime that needs to be removed from the undercarriage. And here's a good before and after picture. So before would be the top part where it's just dull, dark, and the after is the bottom part, where you could see that the red sealer and primer has fully cleaned up, it's fully shiny, and the goal is to get the rest of the undercarriage to look just like that.
The long process of cleaning the rear undercarriage of the car is now complete. I started here where you can see that base layer of undercoating in the front, and completed where the leaf springs will bolt in on the front of both sides, as well as where both the shocks and the resonators bolt in. Going further back, the cleanup continued to where the fuel tank will bolt in and where the rear shackles of the leaf springs and mufflers will bolt in on both sides. Now the next step is to prepare to do a new layer of undercoating, and that undercoating will include in the muffler area, as well as inside the rear shackle and leaf spring area and underneath the trunk. It will also include both rear fender wells, as well as including in the front here, just in front of where the leaf springs bolt in. So I will now be working on the undercoating, and as you can see, I've gone a little bit over the top with my prep work, and that's because I don't want to get any overspray on the newly epoxed floor or on the walls or on the car itself. So while the driver's side is sealed off, I've created more of like an entryway so I can get in there and get started on this undercoating. So for this section of the project, I'm going to start here and work my way back. So I'm going to start on this part of the undercoating, work my way up into this part that's perpendicular to the ground, and then complete all the way through. As you can see, I've taped everything off. I will then do the fender wells, both fender wells. I will then do the channel where the leaf spring goes, and then again where the exhaust goes. And now let's check out the finished product. And we're now checking out the finished product. And as you can see, you can tell where the difference in the black is on the undercoating. And that's because I only did just a little small section on the underneath part. I'll do that big part as a separate project. I did the section on each side all the way up to where the leaf spring bolts in. Now let's check out the back side. Here's the driver's side where the muffler bolts in. And this is the channel where the leaf spring and shackle will bolt in. We also took care of the driver's side fender well. And we also took care of the passenger side fender well. And the last section to check is underneath the trunk. And then we also took care of inside of the channel where the leaf spring bolts in, as well as where the muffler bolts in. And you will notice that the passenger side muffler channel had less undercoating than the other side. So I'm a little OCD. I prefer symmetry, but I only covered the areas where there was actual undercoating. So kept it original. Great. The rear undercarriage is exactly the way I wanted it. Fully cleaned, fully painted with the undercoating, and this was no small project. I would say that the cleaning part probably took about 3 to 4 weeks of nights and weekends here and there as time permitted. Some of the tools I used Goo Gone, Simple Green, plastic scrapers. I used some of the blue non-scratch Scotch-Brite pads, and that's what allowed me to get everything cleaned up. And then I ended up using 3M undercoating and just put 2 extra layers on the already existing undercoating. And as you saw, there was a little bit of some symmetrical issues, which did not cater to my OCD very well. As you could see, the 2 muffler areas where the mufflers go up do not have the same amount of undercoating, but I wanted to keep it original, so I didn't go for symmetry. You're not going to see it anyways, but I'm going to know. But now we are ready to reinstall the rear axle and all of the rear suspension. So stay tuned for some more content on the restore of the 1966 Lincoln Continental. Thanks, guys.